Throughout her life, their daughter had never had a problem sleeping alone and she was quite independent. But lately, they couldn't leave her alone in any room, even during the day. Everything changed when they adopted a dog. At first, they were happy to see that their daughter could sleep peacefully again, knowing that there was a new companion in the home. But they didn't see this coming. Dex Pritchett was an ordinary father living in Kansas with his wife Lindsay and their 1-year-old daughter, Michaela. Dex was a professor at the local university while his wife ran a bakery in town. As far as he was concerned, his life was great, but everything would change when little Michaela turned 5. The Pritchett family lived in a nice neighborhood, and they were fortunate to have a large, beautiful house with more than enough room for the small family. Looking to fill the space with more family members, Dex and Lindsay agreed to get a pet while they discussed the possibility of having a second child. However, it wouldn't be smooth sailing. The problems began when Michaela complained that she was afraid to sleep alone in her room. She would wake up late at night and find herself alone, so she couldn't go back to sleep. Dex and Lindsay understood how distressing that could be for any child, so they thought she was just afraid of the dark. Soon enough, things escalated. Michaela started crying whenever she was alone, even during the day. This was a big change because 3 years ago, Michaela slept peacefully in her own room, something Lindsay was very proud of. At first, Lindsay had to stay with Michaela until she fell asleep, but things always went smoothly. Now, they didn't know what to do. Every time Michaela woke up scared, she ran to her parents' room and things weren't getting better. Dex and Lindsay were beside themselves with worry as Michaela's phobia of being alone grew more intense. They couldn't leave her side even for a few brief moments. She always needed someone to be with her. It didn't take long for them to decide that enough was enough, and it was time to take Michaela to the doctor. However, they were never able to make their appointment because they got stuck in Kansas City traffic. Bored in the car, Dex put on some country music to lift everyone's mood, and he started talking to Lindsay. But while they were lost in their conversation, something happened to Michaela in the back seat that would change their lives forever. But before we learn what happened, give this video a like to help it reach 10K likes and subscribe to the channel. Unbeknownst to Dex and Lindsay, Michaela got close to the car window. Suddenly, she was yelling, "Mommy, doggy, doggy!" Both parents turned to her, surprised to find her near the window. They followed Michaela's eyes, gaping at what they saw outside her car. It was a pet store. They could see several puppies and kittens through the window. Dex and Lindsay had already talked about rescuing a dog, so it came to mind when they saw the animals. At that moment, they got a call from the pediatrician informing them they had to reschedule. Dex took this as a sign, so he pulled his car out of traffic and headed towards the pet store. The dog the Pritchett family chose was a handsome 2-year-old Pitbull named Silva. Although Lindsay had reservations, Dex thought he was the perfect dog and he would be the ideal companion to Michaela. On the way home, Dex and Lindsay bought their new dog the best food, a feeder, a bed, and even some toys. When they got home, Silva seemed to love it. The dog felt very comfortable with the family, and it was like he was already a member. But he had a habit that would frighten the parents, and that habit only came out at night. That night, they prepared a small housewarming party for Silva. Afterward, they snuggled up to watch a movie, and it was a lovely evening. But then the craziest thing happened. Michaela, who rarely slept with the TV on, was sound asleep on the couch. Silva was at her feet, and he was also sound asleep. The scene was so cute. Dex and Lindsay tried not to wake the girl while they moved her to her room. They expected Silva to wake up as soon as they tried to carry Michaela, and he did, but they didn't expect what their new dog would do next. Before they went to bed, Dex and Lindsay set up the brand new bed and water bowl for Silva in the kitchen and left him there to sleep. He inspected the new bed and turned around a couple of times before settling in. Then they closed the door and went back to the living room to continue watching TV for a few hours before going to bed. It was only when Lindsay got up to get a glass of water from the kitchen that she noticed Silva was not in her bed. Lindsay was puzzled. They had closed the kitchen door, she was sure of it. Dex had suggested that Silva slept with Michaela, but Lindsay wasn't comfortable with the idea of the dog roaming around the house at night. That's why they decided he would stay in the kitchen. But how had he gotten out? Panicked, Lindsay began searching the house room by room. After checking the living room, dining room, and hallway, she still couldn't find Silva. But when she checked Michaela's room, she was surprised. Silva was hiding under her daughter's bed. Her husband had grown up with Pitbulls, but Lindsay still had some reservations, so she took Silva back to the kitchen. However, Silva's strange nightly habit was just getting started. Even though Lindsay locked Silva in the kitchen every night, he kept escaping. Lindsay panicked every time she woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't find him there, and each time she would find him under Michaela's bed. This went on for weeks. Lindsay told her husband about it, but he didn't seem concerned at all. Lindsay had gotten used to getting up every night to take Silva to the kitchen, but this couldn't last forever. She had tried to teach him to stay in his bed during the night, but he insisted on escaping to Michaela's room. The only option left was to have him sleep outside, but Lindsay didn't want to do that. After a particularly exhausting day, Lindsay slept through the night, so no one got Silva out of her daughter's room. To their surprise, Michaela didn't wake her parents up that night as she had been doing for months. She slept peacefully and woke up in the morning looking well rested and with a smile on her face. Dex and Lindsay were relieved, but what had changed? Michaela was hardly an early riser and she was not smiley in the mornings, but today everything was different. Dex wanted to uncover the mystery, so he set up 2 cameras, one in Michaela's room and one in the kitchen. That night, as they watched from the monitors, the parents were speechless. They saw that Silva appeared to be sleeping soundly in his bed in the kitchen where they had left him. Lindsay noticed that the kitchen door was closed and watched as Michaela fell asleep relatively quickly. But she didn't stay asleep for long. Michaela began to toss and turn in bed and then sat up very quickly. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and stared into the darkness with wide eyes. Lindsay's immediate maternal instinct was to go comfort her daughter, but she fought the urge because she wanted to see what would happen. After a few minutes, the little girl did something shocking. Michaela carefully slid out of the covers and knelt to look under the bed. Lindsay always checked under Michaela's bed before tucking her in for the night, so she thought that the child was doing the same thing. She was checking to see if there were monsters under the bed. After checking, Michaela went to the open door. Lindsay thought Michaela was going to her room, as she usually did, but instead she headed down the hallway. With her parents watching her on camera, Michaela headed to the kitchen and quietly opened the door. Silva immediately raised his head as if he had been waiting for the girl. When they realized what was happening, Dex let out a small laugh and Lindsay began to smile. They watched as Michaela led Silva back to her room. Silva followed Michaela back to her room and climbed onto her bed, carefully laying down next to the girl. Michaela snuggled into the dog and she was asleep within minutes. Although purchasing the cameras was a bit expensive, Dex was glad he made the investment because they got to witness this beautiful moment between their daughter and their new pet. He was about to turn off the computer when something else happened. Michaela woke up startled, as did Silva. Michaela looked around her room with sleepy eyes, her brows furrowed. Then her lips began to tremble and her eyes widened. Silva whined and licked her face until she lay back down. When she laid back down, the dog licked her again and laid down next to her. Dex and Lindsay watched open-mouthed as it all unfolded. Michaela smiled, petting Silva until her eyes grew heavy and she fell asleep again. Dex and Lindsay couldn't believe it. In the morning, they found Silva sleeping in his own bed. He was trying to be obedient, so he must have learned to sneak into the kitchen first thing in the morning. When they finally took Michaela to the pediatrician, the Pritchetts learned that their daughter had a case of monophobia, the fear of being alone, and Silva was helping her overcome it. Although Michaela would soon overcome this fear, her bond with Silva would only grow stronger. At first, Lindsay was concerned about the sleeping arrangements, but she soon learned that sleeping with a four-legged friend has many benefits. Numerous studies have shown that dogs can relieve stress and help their owners manage their anxiety. When Michaela felt Silva's presence by her side, her cortisol levels, heart rate and blood pressure decreased. Having a dog sleep with her daughter seemed like the perfect solution to her monophobia, but was Lindsay ready to trust a Pitbull? Pitbulls often get a bad rap, and they are considered one of the most dangerous breeds because of their wide jaws and powerful bodies. But these dogs can also be loving and loyal. It's all a matter of upbringing and training. Any unsocialized and untrained dog can be dangerous, not just pit bulls, so it's up to the owners. Eventually, Lindsay understood that, and she came to love and trust Silva. What do you think of today's story? Are you a fan of pit bulls? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. See you next time.